Well, hey guys, we're in Adamsville, Tennessee today, the home of Sheriff Buford Pusser. We're not going to take a typical YouTube tour of the museum like what's been done so many times. In fact, just recently, one of my favorite YouTubers, Days with Jordan the Lion, was just through here. And if you're looking for a typical house tour, check his out. He gives you as good a tour as anybody, plus he respects their rules of no videoing inside. So go for the normal house tour with Days with Jordan the Lion. And here today, we're going to take a ride from the museum to the ambush site, specifically from the church to the two ambush sites, while we read and paraphrase some Buford's statement to TBI concerning the ambush. I want to see if hearing that statement on video while we're driving down the road, well, I want to hear if Buford's statement sounds real or even possible. And to be honest with you, I'm sort of on the fence about Buford's indictment thing. I won't be able to make up my mind about his guilt or innocence until I get to read the new TBI report. This old report I'm reading through starts off saying that the Honorable W.T. Abernathy, the District Attorney General, well, he wanted to conduct an investigation so he could find out the facts and circumstances surrounding the murder of Pauline Pusser, the shooting of McNairy County Sheriff Buford Pusser, which happened on New Hope Road in McNairy County, Tennessee, early in the morning of August 12, 1967. The report gives Buford's name and address, and well, even his phone number. And Buford says he had been working Friday night, August 11th, and well, he didn't come home until 4:30 to 5 a.m. on Saturday morning. He said that he had been home about 10 minutes when the phone rang. I always thought it was a friend of Buford's who was calling, that he knew, but the caller was unknown to Buford, and he did say, "This is a friend of yours." He invited Buford on down to the Stateline Road and said, "You will run into something big or important." Buford told the guy on the phone that he had just gotten home and he was tired and couldn't wait until tomorrow. To that, the man replied, "No, it won't be there tomorrow." Buford told the guy he didn't want to go into it on the phone because somebody could be listening and would tip the people off. Apparently, Buford got a little angry and told the man okay and slammed the receiver down. The video of the first part of this trip comes in spurts, you might say, because it takes a while to get to New Hope Road and church. Buford says that both he and his wife Pauline got in his car and they left Adamsville and went out Highway 64. They turned off at Gilchrist and went through Blacktop Road to Stantonville, then west toward Eastview and turned left onto New Hope Road. When asked what time it was, Buford said it was still dark but was beginning to break day, but that he still had to have his car headlights on to see. First off, I guess I'd like to remind you that it would have been really dark out here. Not too much man-made light coming in from anywhere. And remember, Buford said he was driving 80 to 90 on these roads and slowed down to 50 when he got to New Hope Road because of its poor condition. We're almost to the church now. You know, the movie portrays the blue Cadillac as hiding beside the church, but one book I read said it was waiting to the right of that Y you just saw up the road a bit. So as we make our way to the church and look around it for just a sec, let's remember that Buford was driving about 50 when he passed here. Now, I gotta tell you, I think if somebody was waiting beside the church where we're driving now, that they may have a hard time catching up with Buford. But if they were waiting back up the road in the Y, maybe they could have caught him by the bridge. Let me know what you think in the comments section. Either way, someone would have had to follow Buford and Pauline when they left Adamsville and use some type of two-way radio to send word up ahead on where to catch him. In our narrative, Buford has already passed the church. But as we finish going through his statement to the police, you decide if you could have caught Buford traveling 50 miles an hour by the time we get to the bridge. Of course, driving conditions at just about daybreak are a little bit different than they are for me right now. Apparently, about this time, Pauline was playing with the radio, trying to get the speaker level balanced, and he had slowed down pretty slow for a bridge you're going to see in a minute because he didn't know anyone was behind him. He first realized someone was behind him when he heard shots. Then he noticed the front end of a car that had pulled up beside him just as he was pulling across the bridge. The car had had its headlights off, and the headlights came on just about the time the shooting started. Buford said that he thought there were some shots first, and then the headlights on this car popped on, but that it was all about the same time. He thought that 4 to 6 shots came from this car that had just pulled up beside him. 2 or 3 shots hit his car, and one of the shots hit Pauline, and she started hollering, "Oh, oh, oh." The report goes on to say that the distance from Sheriff Pusser's house in Adamsville to the scene of the bridge here is 23 7/10 miles. So the big question for me is, could you have caught Buford if you had gotten in this game right about the church? I'm going to say I may have been able to catch him if I'd have been waiting on the Y. I'm not so sure I could have caught him if I would have been hiding up by the church. You can see where someone has taken down the sign for the first ambush site. Glass was found on the road here at the bridge, along with some .30 caliber cartridge cases. A guy named Lester Burns, who lives in Midway, found the cartridge cases. Around this time, Buford gunned his car and pulled Pauline over to him. He went a couple miles down the road here. He thought he had lost the shooter, so he pulled over sort of at a diagonal. Sheriff Pusser said Pauline was making sort of a choking sound, so he tried to talk with her, but he doesn't think she ever said anything. She was gurgling and bleeding from the face. Said that when she would breathe, she would gurgle. Pauline stiffened and started jerking, and her hands and feet went up, and he thought she was choking to death. And that's when he pulled over. When he stopped and turned her to him, he saw blood coming out of her hairline and her mouth. He had one leg out of the car, but was still sitting in the seat when a Cadillac pulled up even with him and stopped in the road. The Cadillac's headlights were on. The Cadillac pulled over to the left a pretty good ways, enough so that a car possibly could fit in between the two vehicles. When the Cadillac stopped, they started shooting into the sheriff's car, and glass began flying everywhere. Sheriff Pusser was saying that he was looking directly at Pauline when she was hit in the forehead. When he saw Pauline hit again, he was trying to pull her over to him. Then he was hit, and it knocked him down in his car seat. He got back up when the gun stopped firing. When he sat back up, he saw that the back of the Cadillac was about even with the front of his car. When Buford sat back up, he said he saw a man sitting in the front seat of the Cadillac with a gun half stuck out the window. It had a big long clip, and the gun was kind of stuck out sideways. The gunman was looking at Buford's car and working a bolt on the gun like maybe it had hung up. Buford then got out of his car and made a lunge for the Cadillac. Buford made it to the car window and had just gotten a hold of the gun when the Cadillac started up again. The Cadillac started rolling and jerked the gun loose from Buford. Buford was standing in the middle of the road as the Cadillac drove off toward Highway 45. There's a note in the report that says it's exactly a distance of 1 9/10 miles from one ambush site to the other, and the second ambush site is exactly 1 mile from Highway 45. As the Cadillac drove off, Buford made his way back to his car trunk and was going to get a rifle out of it. He couldn't find the trunk key, but remembered that he loaned the gun out a week or so ago anyway. He says he thinks he then got down in the ditch on Pauline's side of the car and began hollering for her. He got back into the car and Pauline was laying in the seat with her head toward the steering wheel. He straightened her up and laid her over toward the window. He took off thinking he might catch the Cadillac and kill the people who had shot at them. He had a shotgun somewhere in the car and a .357 on his hip. He took off trying to catch the Cadillac. He tried to use his car radio to report what had happened, but could not get anybody to answer him. He could hardly talk because of the injury to his jaw. He got to Highway 45 and he looked toward Corinth and didn't see the Cadillac, so he turned toward Selma. He passed Hollis Jordan's beer joint and didn't see the Cadillac, so he turned around and went toward Corinth as fast as he could. He stopped in front of the Shamrock Motel where he could see the front of the Plantation Club. He was looking for a blue Cadillac like he saw on New Hope Road and like W.O. Hathcock Jr. owned. Buford saw 2 or 3 cars in the Plantation Club parking lot, but not the blue Cadillac. If you guys watch Mike Elam on YouTube, you know that he says W.O. sold that car a couple days before that. Buford missed a turn he intended to take and realized he was on New Hope Road, and he turned around and went back to the highway. At this point, Buford was getting to where he couldn't see very well, but the highway patrol and the Selma police met him where he was on Highway 45. An ambulance came and picked up he and Pauline and took them on to Selma. Pusser said that the Cadillac had tinted glass and he thought that it was W.O.'s Cadillac. There wasn't any license plate on the Cadillac. He said he did not know the man with the rifle in the front seat, but thought he would recognize him if he saw him again. Buford said the man was 30 to 40 years old and had thick black hair. He wore no glasses but had a full, round face. His plaid shirt sleeves came down to his elbows. When Sheriff Pusser was asked why he had not pulled his .357, he said he was in so much pain. When he sat back up and he saw the man working the bolt to the rifle somewhere close to where we are now, that he didn't even think about his pistol. He just lunged for the gun. Now, Buford's car was somewhere in the road right in front of us. If the old ambush site sign that's no longer here was supposed to mark the spot. We'll have to try to find some pictures of the ambush to see if we can get a better location of his car. If this all went down close to this intersection, then perhaps there could have been enough room for a vehicle to get in between the shooter's vehicle and Buford's. Somebody that knows the exact location of Buford's car at this second ambush site, please tell us in the comments. You'll notice the pole that held the ambush site sign until here recently when we pan around and look into this other direction. That's generally all of Buford's statement that I have. Now, I have read that Pauline's hair and brain matter were found at both ambush sites. I also read in one book where brain matter was found inside the car. Now, frankly, I don't know if any of this is true, but just like the rest of you, I guess I'll have to wait for this new TBI report to come out. We're going to move on down to the site of the Shamrock to end this video. I hope it helped some of you to be able to see the sites in real time, maybe in some way, along with the new TBI report. Seeing all this will help you form an opinion about who did what. As we look at the site of the Shamrock, I'm reminded that I'm intrigued by the story of what we call the Stateline mob, and even Buford Pusser. But these stories are real and involve real people. So let's not forget that the pain and suffering is real too. I hope you learned a little something today. Thank you.